Welcome to the Business Transformation Pitch. I am Greg, the CX goalkeeper, bringing you conversations where transformation, leadership, and customer experience meet to create real impact. Did you know 80% of regular listeners haven't subscribed yet? If you enjoy the show, support us by hitting the subscribe button. I promise we will keep raising the bar with the guests, ideas, and strategies that really matter to you. Because in business, just like in football, this conversation could be the game changer. I am Greg's AI-based assistant. In this episode, Greg had the pleasure of double-clicking into the world of AI in contact centers with Rick DeLisi. They explored how AI is reshaping the balance between cost efficiency and creating exceptional customer experiences. Rick shared insights from his extensive research, highlighting strategies that empower both customers and frontline employees. It was a fascinating discussion that opens up new possibilities for businesses looking to leverage AI strategically. Enjoy the discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Business Transformation Pitch with the CX Goalkeeper. Today I'm really thrilled because I have a recurring guest, Rick DeLisi, together with me. Hi Rick, how are you?
Hello there, so good to talk to you again.
I'm super grateful you published a very interesting research that we are going to discuss. It's all about changing the AI conversation, reinvest, reallocate, right size, unlocking the contact center strategic value with AI. But before we deep dive into your latest research, what's the biggest highlight of your career so far? Think like one goal that you shot during your career.
Is eliminating terrible, bad, high-effort customer service interactions. I think we can all relate to situations we've had where we needed some kind of help or information from a company, and getting it just felt like a big hassle. I think that's been a perennial concern, but what I'm really excited about is that those days can now be over.
You are so right. I think I have in this period the same feeling that all what we were speaking about in the past now is possible and is manageable. And on the other side, it's not all about technology, but it's also about customer accepting to speak with voice bot or to understand that AI is there to support them, to support the journeys. And therefore, let's ask the last question about you, and then we go into the topic. What's your current mission? How are you trying to win the game today?
So I work for Glia, which is the creator of an intelligent platform for banking interactions. So creating more effortless interactions with customers of banks and credit unions, and using AI as a tool that resolves some customer issues, but also immediately transitions that customer to a live human who's also supported by AI to create much more efficient and better experience interactions.
That's really interesting. But let's now really kick off the discussion, kick off the game. Let's speak about your research. I know that you spoke with 945 contact center leaders to discover how they are unlocking the full value of AI. Why this study now?
Well, this is the largest ever study that's been done among contact center leaders about their current use of AI, expectations about using AI, and what value they expect AI to bring. So even though AI isn't a brand new concept, it feels like in just the last year or two, so many of us have gotten used to interacting with AI in various forms. And now we're seeing its direct application to improving efficiency and experience for banks and credit unions.
What I really like, it's not only the extensive research that you did, but also speaking about value that AI can generate. And it's not all about cost control, but it's also to drive strategic gains across the entire business. Can you please elaborate a bit on that?
You know, if you think about it, throughout the legacy history of contact centers or even call centers before everything got elevated to being a contact center, there's always been this conflict, this trade-off between efficiency, trying to drive down the cost of serving customers, and experience, creating loyalty-building experiences that can potentially also generate additional revenue. But those two things have always been at odds with each other. You know, if you think about it, if a company wanted to greatly eliminate costs, you could do that. You could greatly reduce the cost of serving customers, but that would come at the cost of a degraded or an inferior customer experience. On the other hand, if you think about it the opposite direction, if companies want to create the best possible 5-star raving fan experiences for customers, you could do that as well, but that would be cost prohibitive. So there's always been this trade-off. It's like every executive decision anybody in the customer interaction space has ever made is always trading one of those two things off against each other. But now with the maturity of AI, it is possible to do both, to greatly save on cost, to spend a lot less than what companies are spending right now to serve customers, and to create a far better experience, both for customers as well as the people who serve customers, your frontline team. So it's never been possible to achieve both of these goals simultaneously and at the highest levels ever.
You are so right. Also, from my personal experience working in contact centers, you need always to balance cost efficiency with increasing profit, increasing revenues. And when you start balancing them, then it's always about, okay, let's first reduce cost because it has a direct impact on the P&L. We can do it now. It's clear we can reduce the number of employees. You can automate, and then we see it now in the next quarter. If we speak about creating profit in the future, it's always about, okay, when exactly does it come? What will be? Are we sure that it's created from your department and not from other departments? And therefore, I think now that we can find a balance or focus more also on the strategic gains, it's really, really interesting. I see, and I know that together with Justin Robbins, you worked and you uncovered 6 AI strategies that are that contact centers can implement now. Could you please elaborate a bit on these findings? Perhaps let's go quickly through the 6th one, and then we pick some to discuss.
Sure. So among these is keeping greater front of mind presence around the experience frontline employees are having. And so one of the things that we've learned in the Effortless Experience research is that employee experience matters a lot. So the experience that your employees are having invariably translates to the experience that your customers are having. But it's possible now to support frontline employees with tools that were never available before to make their job easier and more effortless itself. And so supporting your frontline in ways you never could have before ought to be a key strategy for every company. Another thing ought to be recognizing that there's tremendous value in being able to mine data and insights from the interactions that you're having with customers. At Glia, we've created what's called the channelless platform, meaning all forms of voice and digital and AI are all unified into one single platform, meaning you can now generate insights by mining through the data of every interaction you've ever had. So being able to achieve ROI beyond just cost savings or just revenue generation is now possible through mining insights. You know, any of us who are familiar with using ChatGPT, for example, the idea of just keystroking in a question and then getting instant responses and insights, that now is possible in a more finite way by mining your customer data. And so being able to generate ROI through insights that can lead to better marketing decisions or new product development is something that's never been available before. Another thing is recognizing that automation of customer interactions makes sense some of the time. In other words, there are certain kinds of interactions that can be easily automated. By the way, even customers who would say, I don't like interacting with bots, or I don't trust AI, which is a high percentage of customers, those same people would, in another survey question, contradict themselves by saying, I want to get instant answers to simple questions. Well, that's exactly what AI is perfectly poised to do. But the mistake that some companies are making is that they start to think, how can we automate all our interactions or even the majority of them? Well, what we're discovering is that about 50% of interactions can easily be resolved with virtual assistants. But the other 50% that can't should be handled by a human being whose own performance and job satisfaction is being aided by internal agent-facing AI tools. So this is what we call AI for all, not just customer-facing, but also frontline agent-facing, as well as AI tools that can help managers and executives as well. So these are some of the top-line findings that we're discovering. When companies recognize that it's now possible to instantly identify a customer's issue type or need, and then immediately offer them either virtual assistants for simple issues or a live human being for more complex or emotional issues, now you really have the best of both worlds and the opportunity to match the exact right interaction to the right customer at the right time.
What you're describing sounds like magic.
Yeah. And you know what? Even a year or two ago, it would have been a pipe dream, if it was even a dream at all. But now it's very much reality. And we're now working with hundreds of companies that are beginning to move in this direction.
Let's perhaps make it a bit more tangible. Checking the points that you mentioned. The first one is related to employee experience, offering to the employees tools. I understand and what you're saying, but basically I see companies also in Europe that are still struggling with basic knowledge management, that the FAQs that are on the web page are not aligned to the knowledge that these agents get during their trainings, and they have always, without mentioning tools, notes tool, piece of paper, digitally with a lot of notes, and everybody's following its own process that he understood from the trainings. And could you please share perhaps an example of tools that you are offering to the employees?
Sure. So let's talk about a couple things. One of the biggest time wasters, inefficient use of time for customer service interactions are the first two steps. So in financial services, the first step is always going to be authentication. So making sure that this is truly the customer and not some fraudster. Those things are absolutely necessary. There's also regulatory and security compliance issues that are all tied up into authentication. The second one is issue diagnosis, trying to understand what this customer's issue is. And then on the frontline agent side, then they have to start digging through the knowledge base to come up with the appropriate responses to that issue type. All of those steps can now be fully automated. So by the time the human agent enters the interaction, if it's the kind that really requires a person, the agent already knows who the person is and they know what their issue type is. So think about how different that is. Instead of the agent having to start the interaction by saying, "Hi, I'm Rick, how may I help you?" They can say, "Hey, Greg, looks like you're trying to apply for an auto loan. I could totally help you with that. And in fact, I've already started the process." So imagine for just a second that's still the same two people, one agent and one customer, still resolving the same issue, getting an auto loan approved, but it's a totally different experience. And once the system has identified that this is an auto loan issue, up on your screen automatically pops all the information from the knowledge base about how to handle that process. And even instant suggestions in the midst of the interaction, because the AI is listening to the interaction as well, and can occasionally pop up on the agent screen additional information, steps that have to be taken, or even helping the customer become aware of other products and services you may be offering. So all of that clicking and scrolling can now be a thing of the past, because once we know who this person is and once we know what their issue is, now we can set about to have a human interaction aided by AI that just feels completely different to both parties.
And back to the question that you asked me, if it would be like exactly as you said, that the agent knows my name and knows my issue, I would hug him, because nowadays it's quite different. It's always a struggle to discuss with them. Who are you? Are you really allowed to do that? And what's your problem? And yes and no. And therefore, I think that's really a great example.
Those things are important and they have to get done, but they don't really add value to the customer's resolution of whatever their issue is. Confirming who I am, by the way, I already know I'm me, so I appreciate the fact that you're trying to safeguard my account by making sure I'm not a fraudster, but I already know I'm me. I already know what my issue is. So to have to go through the first 90 seconds to 2 minutes of those two steps to eliminate that from the human equation brings us to the point where we can now concentrate on solving my issue in a more human way.
I really like that. Let's move to the second one. You shared the creating value out of the data that it's there, creating insight. And I think nowadays we know that we can ask to ChatGPT, like a chat some question and get some insights. Perhaps it's a more difficult question, but I would really like to understand your view. Do contact center managers, do contact center executives really know which type of question they should ask to this ChatGPT's internal based on all this information that they have?
So two things. Number one is, with the history of a few hundred companies already starting to use what we call executive AI, so being able to query your entire database of every customer interactions, already there's lots of suggested questions that have been fruitful for other companies. But I'd say, because there is no cost to asking questions, and because there's no time delay in getting answers, now you can be far more free to ask any question. If you just have a hypothesis or something you're curious about or something that's been bugging you, if you had to send that off and create a work ticket for some analyst team and then wait 2 weeks for the result, you have to be a lot more careful about what questions you're asking. You don't want to put people through all the time and effort to research something that turns out not to be that valid anyway. But when you're just sitting at your keyboard asking questions, or even just asking questions with your voice, then it allows you to just be a whole lot more free and to be more curious. If you ask a question that doesn't yield much of a result, then come up with something else to ask. But there is no time delay and there's no cost for it. So there's no penalty for asking questions that might not prove to be all that valuable. But again, the more questions you ask, the more insights you uncover. So it's really the freedom and the freeness of being able to ask questions that changes the whole dynamic of being an executive. Let your curiosity be your guide.
And I think that's one point that you're touching is extremely important. If I feel free and let's say I am in a safe space that I can ask questions, perhaps also stupid questions to this AI, then I get all the information that I need. I can be up to date with all the information without the need to ask to a business analyst or to somebody to my team a question that they would say, oh, but you don't know that? And I think this is so interesting.
Think about, just being with ChatGPT. I can't imagine a person's ever been embarrassed by some question that they asked by keystroking it into their keyboard. There's no external scrutiny. There's no judgment.
Exactly. I think that's extremely important. And now let's go to the next topic that you mentioned. It's balancing AI with human interactions. You said 50-50. I really like that it's 50-50 because most of the technology providers say it's 90-10 or 80-20, and I would say it's 50-50. It's also a bit my gut feeling based on the different personas, but also based on the different requests that are coming. How are you deciding if it's to be answered by an AI or by a human being?
So the most important thing that any AI system can do for customer-facing interactions is to know which issue types it can handle through automation and which it can't. Of course, absent the seamless channelless platform that I'm describing, if a person tries to interact with AI and it can't provide the answer or the information that they need, then that customer is stuck with having to then wait around for or even call an agent and start the whole interaction all over again. But what we're talking about is, if AI can instantly respond and provide you with the information you need, there it is. It just pops up on your screen, or it's spoken to you in a human-like voice. If it can't, then it immediately transitions you to a live agent who then, by the time they say hello, again, already knows who you are and knows what your issue is. Let me put an asterisk on that, though. One thing that's really important is no company ever wants to put their customers in a situation where they can't talk to a human being if they absolutely insist on it, or where they're forced to talk to a human being if they don't want to. And what we've pioneered at Glia is a system that avoids both of those. A customer can always do whatever they could have done before without restriction, and they're never forced to do a thing that they don't want to do. But again, remember, even customers who would say, and by the way, think about this as 2 consecutive survey questions. If we were to survey customers and say, do you like interacting with bots? Do you like AI? The vast majority of people would say, no, I don't. But if you ask those same people in a follow-up question, do you like getting instant responses to simple questions? They would say, yes, I do. Isn't that a contradiction?
Yes.
And so being able to match the interaction to the need that this person has at that moment that they've reached out to you, this is the real key. And so that's never been possible before. If anything, companies would have liked to profile or segment their customers as, these are the kinds of customers who always want to talk to a human being, or these are the customers who never want to talk to a human being and want to self-serve on everything. The reality is, people are not that simplistic because it depends on the need you have at the moment. So envision the same exact customer who contacts a financial services company 2 days in a row with 2 completely different issues. One day, they might immediately have their issue resolved by virtual assistants. The next day, they might immediately be transitioned to a live human. So interestingly, we feel most companies are getting personalization wrong because issue resolution shouldn't be personalized to the person. It should be personalized to the issue that this person has at this moment that they've chosen to contact us.
You are so right. We discussed about a lot of different application of AI and to solve customer issues, to decrease cost, to optimize employee experience. Do you have perhaps some example, some use cases that you are allowed to share? You don't need to mention customer names, that's clear. But for me, it would be also really interesting to have also results, tangible results that you can share with us.
Yeah, we're using 50-50 as just a general description, but we've seen some of our clients who, within the first couple of days of instituting this channelless, seamless AI for all concept, that are able to resolve 60 or 70% of customer issues through virtual assistants to the complete satisfaction of their customers, even those who would have said, I don't like interacting with bots. I had a conversation recently with a woman who's head of customer experience for a bank in Connecticut. And she said something that really stuck with me, and that is, there's no inherent value in hearing your balance from a human being versus a virtual assistant. And so again, being able to identify exactly which simple routine issues can be immediately resolved through virtual assistants, and then also knowing that you shouldn't waste any more time with the virtual assistant when it's absolutely required to transition that person to a live agent. This is the sweet spot. This is what's never been possible before. And this is where efficiency and experience can both be improved simultaneously.
Thank you very much, Rick. We are coming to an end of this discussion, but for the audience, if you are interested in this research, you will find all the information in the show notes. I will share the link where you can download this report, and for sure you can contact Rick for any additional question. Now we are coming to the end of the game, and we have penalties. It's a quick fire round, short question with short answer. Who is your role model in business?
I think the people that I worked with on the Effortless Experience, which are Matt Dixon and Nick Toman, those guys have been so influential in helping me understand the link between academic research and practical everyday application. Working with those guys was a huge eye-opener for me, and being able to translate research findings into everyday conversation and practical utilization.
And please remember, not you, but the audience, that the Effortless Experience is one of the foundational books in customer experience, and it's really worth reading it. It's incredible. I still have always with me because it's full of insights, and I see a lot of keynote speakers that share insights from the Effortless Experience. What's your transformation superpower?
is being able to be part of the team of people who are finally, once and for all, eliminating horrible, high effort, seamful customer experiences. I mean, one of the great things about working in this space is that not only is it part of the profession, but it's part of our everyday experience. Maybe it's just because of my research background. Man, do I hate terrible customer service experiences. Hate them. Not only because they're painful to be in the midst of, but because they're unnecessary. And finally, we're at that moment of time where these things can be eliminated.
And what's your toughest professional challenge that you have beaten in the last few years?
It's helping people understand that the previous generation of AI was ineffective in a lot of cases, and that this fear that instituting AI means we're going to lose touch with our customers or be unable to maintain that human relationship with people. We're discovering it's exactly the opposite of that. So, we understand the trepidation or the hesitance that some companies have, particularly working in financial services, a heavily regulated, risk-averse industry. We get that there's companies that are saying, we don't want to use AI because we still want to maintain contact and have human interactions and relationships with people. It's possible now to, again, have better relationships and better interactions while also becoming way more efficient.
And what's your number one winning habit that keeps you sharp?
Is appreciating that the key to customer centricity isn't analyzing and thinking about your customers, but it's being able to think like your customers. Your customers have no idea what you're dealing with, the economic pressures, the regulatory pressures, competitive pressures, technological pressures. Your customers don't know about any of that. They don't know what your goals are. They don't know what your challenges are. All they know is what they experience. So I've always felt like part of my job as a researcher is to help people root themselves in a more customer-centric mentality. Think like your customers, not just about them.
And now we're coming to Rick Golden Nugget. It's something that we discussed or something new to leave to the audience with.
I thought recently to myself, I ultimately feel very sorry for people who have worked in this profession for their entire careers and are now getting ready to retire. Because, you ran the whole marathon, but you never got to break the tape at the end. We're finally at the end of the 26 miles. We're finally at the end of the long slog, which has been customer service and operating contact centers. It's always been a really hard job, and it's now getting a lot easier and a lot more rewarding. The three words that keep ringing in my head is help has arrived. Your virtual workforce is the help you never had before. And it makes your job not only just more efficient, but more rewarding and more engaging. And for anybody who's just about to leave because they've come to the end of their career, I feel sorry for you because you did all the work, but now you've missed the big party and the celebration at the end.
And that's so cool to be part of this celebration on this party together with you, Rick. The last question I have for you is, if somebody from the audience has a question, how can they reach out to you?
So certainly come visit our website at glia.com, and you can see all the information about this report that we've been talking about and about the whole idea of intelligent banking platform, the channel-less experience. You can see all of that. If you'd like to reach out to me directly, you can always go to LinkedIn, and I'm always excited to talk to anybody who wants to pick up on this conversation or continue to think how you can improve both wealth generation and economic success with a far superior loyalty-building customer experience.
That's incredible. And Rick, I can only say thank you very much. It was an incredible discussion. I go out from this discussion, as usual, super energized with a lot of new ideas, with a lot of new insights. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom and your research together with us. Thank you.
Great to talk to you. I said it to you last time. Hope this is not the last time. Turned out not to be, and I hope we'll do it again sometime.
You are always my guest. Be my guest. Super happy to have you on my podcast. To the audience, I hope that you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did.
For today, it's everything. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
That's all for today. If you enjoyed this episode, please spread the word. It really helps. And remember, 80% of regular listeners haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoyed the show, the easiest way to support us is by hitting that subscribe button. I promise we will keep raising the bar with the guests, ideas, and strategies that matter most to you. Until next time, never forget, we are not in B2B or B2C, we are in H2H, human-to-human environment. Thank you.